The nurse was hired to care for a child in a vegetative state. One day, when no one was watching, she approached the child, and what happened next left her terrified. Emma adjusted the strap of her white uniform as she climbed the steps of the imposing mansion of the Johnsons. It was her first day on the job, and the residents reflected the seriousness of her new responsibility. She would have to care for a child in critical health, and she knew she needed to be the best nurse possible for her young patient. Upon entering, Emma was greeted by Michael, the father of the child, a man of medium height with neatly combed gray hair. His friendly demeanor and gentle gaze conveyed a kindness that complemented the welcoming smile he offered. "Emma, we hope you feel at home here," he said in a warm voice. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm here to do my best," Emma replied, maintaining her composure while observing the surroundings. As Michael guided her through the house, they were interrupted by the arrival of a woman, the owner of the house. He introduced her as Susan, his wife and the stepmother of Lucas, the patient. She was a woman with sharp features and wavy brown hair, radiating an air of arrogance so palpable it seemed like a second skin. Her entrance was abrupt, and she barely acknowledged Emma. "We need to talk about Lucas's medications. It seems he's getting worse," Susan asserted. "I want to take him to my family's trusted doctor," she continued, but she didn't seem surprised by the child's deterioration. Michael shook his head. "The doctor said that his treatment is working and that it's the best treatment in the country," he insisted. As Emma observed the argument, she realized she was in the middle of a battle that had clearly been ongoing for a long time. "I'm giving the best treatment to my son, Susan. However, you know his health is grave," he said firmly. But the boy's stepmother did not appear pleased. "Why don't you ever listen to me? You always listen to Lucas's mother, never to me," she complained before leaving them alone. Emma looked at her new boss and interjected, "The medications you showed me for the treatment seem correct, sir. I assure you I will give my best to care for your son." Emma's generous gaze was met with Michael's smile. "Perfect. I'm sure you will take great care of my Lucas," he said, leading her down the hall toward the child's room. As soon as Emma began her duties, Michael left her alone with his son. Emma reviewed the medications and adjusted Lucas's position, who seemed so fragile and small in his bed, surrounded by tubes. "Poor boy. I want to help you so much," she thought as she worked. As the minutes passed, she watched Lucas lying still in bed, surrounded by softly humming machines, monitoring every aspect of his life. Emma approached cautiously, observing him. His childlike face was serene, but there was a sadness in the corners of his closed eyes that spoke of a deep internal struggle. As Emma became accustomed to the room's atmosphere, she noticed something that made her stop completely. Lucas moved his finger. He looked at the nurse and blinked. His health condition should never have allowed him to make such a gesture, even involuntarily. Emma's heart raced. The child seemed to be struggling to communicate. "Lucas, if you can hear me, give me another sign," she whispered, not believing what was happening. The silence returned, and then as lightly as a leaf falling, his fingers moved again. "I'm going to call your family," she said. However, the boy's eyes widened with fear, and the machines began to beep rapidly the moment she mentioned his family. "If you don't want me to tell them, move your finger 2 times, Emma urged, hoping she was wrong. But to her dismay, Lucas did what she asked, indicating that something terribly wrong was happening in that house and with that family. Emma straightened, looking around to ensure they were alone. "Don't worry, Lucas. I'm here. I will help you," she murmured more to herself than to him, a silent vow hanging in the charged air of the room. Whatever was happening in this house, Emma was involved, determined to uncover the truth at any cost. In the following days, Emma meticulously observed every aspect of Lucas's care, alert for any signs of improvement or deterioration in his condition. One calm afternoon, while organizing the medications, a small unlabeled vial caught her attention. It was partially hidden behind other clearly labeled medicines. She turned the vial in her hands, frowning. There was no indication of its contents or origin, just a clear liquid visible through the glass. "Where did this come from?" she murmured to herself, feeling the weight of suspicion grow within her. The door swung open abruptly, and Susan entered, her face laden with palpable anxiety. "Emma, did you touch the medications today? Did you notice anything different?" she asked, staring directly at the vial in Emma's hand. Emma instinctively hid the vial behind her. "No, ma'am. No one has told me about any changes in the medications," she replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. Susan nodded, clearly distracted, and then left as quickly as she had come. With Susan out of the room, Emma decided to investigate further. She tucked the vial into her pocket and continued her care. But her mind was elsewhere. Why did she ask about the medication? Why was Lucas afraid of his family? Who was he afraid of? Each question strengthened her conviction that something was wrong. Later that night, while Lucas slept, Emma took the opportunity to conduct a more thorough inspection of the room, searching drawers and cabinets for anything unusual. In a small bag at the back of a cupboard, she found several empty wrappers from the same unprescribed medication she had discovered earlier. Emma's heart raced. "This cannot be a coincidence," she whispered to herself. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly hid the bag under her uniform. Emma watched Lucas closely, her heart tight with the responsibility she now bore. After a while, the door to the room opened again, and a woman entered like a whirlwind. It was a woman Emma had not yet met, her features sharp with a penetrating gaze that immediately conveyed a mixture of strength and latent desperation. The stranger hardly noticed Emma, her attention fully on Lucas. "How is he? Any changes since yesterday?" she asked, her voice heavy with urgency and hope. "By the way, I'm Clara, Lucas's mother," she stated, introducing herself without taking her eyes off her son. Still taken aback by Clara's sudden appearance, Emma quickly responded, "No, ma'am. There haven't been any changes in his condition." She watched as Lucas's mother gently touched her son's hand. Lucas had not made any more signs to Emma. Then she wondered if she had imagined everything, if those were just involuntary movements, and if she were wrong to suspect decent people. Before they could exchange more words, Susan entered the room. Her eyes immediately narrowed upon seeing Clara by the bedside. "You always arrive unannounced, Clara. That's not good for Lucas. It's not like you care about your own son," Susan shot back, hostility barely concealed beneath her facade of concern. Clara turned to face Susan with a fierce look. "I am his mother. Of course I care. And I don't need an invitation to see my own son," she retorted, her voice rising in frustration. "And what have you done? Every time I come, he seems worse." Susan stepped forward, her posture rigid. "I'm doing everything I can. Michael trusts me to take care of our child," she asserted, emphasizing the word "our" in a way that clearly irritated Clara. Maybe it's your visits that are making Lucas worse, Susan continued. Emma intervened, sensing that the situation could quickly spiral out of control. Perhaps we could all sit down and discuss this calmly elsewhere. Lucas needs peace, she suggested, trying to be the voice of reason. Clara and Susan glared at each other for a long moment before Clara turned abruptly to Emma. "You're the new nurse, right? You know nothing about my son or what's best for our family," she inquired, evaluating Emma with a disdainful look. Before Emma could respond, Susan interrupted. "She just got here, Clara. Don't put her in the middle of this," she said coldly. Clara sighed, shaking her head. "You know what I think we should do? A nurse isn't going to resolve this issue," she declared, looking at Susan with a silent promise of not giving up. The two women eventually left the room, continuing their hushed argument as they walked away. Emma looked at Lucas, who remained oblivious to the storm around him, feeling a renewed determination. She remembered the unlabeled vials she had found, resolute to investigate further. Waiting for the right moment to check the room again, Emma finally rose when the house calmed down. She began searching for anything that might be a clue. In a bathroom drawer, her heart leapt when her hands found another vial of unprescribed medication hidden under a towel. However, this one looked different. It was thicker and a dark green color. "This medication seems strange," she murmured, feeling the weight of the discovery. Armed with new evidence, Emma knew her next step was crucial. When her shift ended, she didn't want to leave Lucas, so she lay down on the auxiliary bed next to him. However, Michael entered the room with the demeanor of a worried father, coming to check on his son during the night. "Emma, how is he today? Any changes?" he asked, appearing to verify that the child was breathing. His gaze was concerned and filled with fear. Emma saw that he loved his son by the way he worried. However, she couldn't share with anyone what was happening until she was certain of everything. So she simply responded, "No, Mr. Johnson, no changes, but I'm still hopeful that we will see improvements," Emma replied, quickly closing her notebook. Michael smiled sadly. "Thank you, Emma. Your dedication means a lot to us," he said before leaving the room, leaving Emma with her thoughts and doubts. Emma looked at her notebook and then at Lucas, who remained asleep. The truth was hidden somewhere between doses of medication and family secrets, and she was determined to uncover it. The next morning, Emma began her shift with a sense of alertness, always watching Lucas, whose condition remained unchanged, a stillness that now seemed increasingly forced. Minutes after Emma started her shift, Susan entered the room with a tray carrying a new vial of medication. "Good morning, Emma. This is the new medication the doctor prescribed. We hope this will make a difference," she said, her expression carefully neutral. Emma watched as Susan prepared the dose. Her instincts told her something was wrong, and the sudden appearance of a new medication only heightened her suspicions. "Could you show me the prescription, just so I can update Lucas's records correctly?" Emma requested, trying to keep her voice calm and professional. Susan hesitated for a moment, her expression faltering. "Oh yes, of course. Let me go find it," she responded, hurriedly leaving the room. Seizing Susan's absence, Emma approached Lucas to check his health status. When Susan returned, surprisingly without any paperwork, Emma knew something was off. "Sorry, I couldn't find the prescription, but I'm sure it's safe," Susan said, a bit hurried. Emma knew she was too nervous, It seemed like a lie. "It's best to check the doctor's prescription, just as a precaution," the nurse argued. But Susan flushed with anger. "Do you think I would harm my son with the medication? I just want him to get better. If you keep doubting my honesty, you won't be able to work with us anymore. All I want is for my stepson to improve," she said, exasperated. Emma observed as the medication was administered, and Lucas began to show signs of discomfort. Minutes later, his face tightened slightly, and his breathing became more labored. Emma immediately began monitoring his vital signs, which showed subtle but concerning changes. "I won't let her give any medication to Lucas without confirming it with the doctor," Emma murmured to herself, alarmed. She decided to maintain even stricter surveillance and began jotting down every detail in her notebook, determined not to miss anything. As the minutes passed, Emma felt the need to act. "I want to see that doctor. I want to speak with him immediately," she said loudly, echoing the words Susan had said before leaving. It was a risky decision, but necessary to protect Lucas. Susan, who had remained in the room watching Lucas's health, quickly intervened. "Emma, you're new here. Medical decisions are complex and made with Lucas's best interests in mind," she said, attempting to calm the nurse. However, Emma was determined. "Lucas will always be my priority. I was hired to care for him. If something is wrong, I will do my best to resolve it. I want to speak with this doctor," she responded, feeling increasingly like a guardian in this child's life. Susan left the room, saying she would find the doctor's phone number. Taking advantage of the moment, Emma reviewed her records again. Once Susan stepped out to find the doctor's number, the tension in Lucas's room seemed to rise even more. Emma continued her vigilant monitoring, her heart heavy with concern as she awaited Susan's response. Every breath Lucas took was meticulously noted. Every minor deviation on the monitors was jotted down in her notebook. A paper trail she hoped never to use but felt was essential. It didn't take long for Susan to return, her face tense, her voice controlled. "Here's the number. The doctor's name is Dr. Hall," she announced, handing a small piece of paper to Emma. "You'll see there's nothing wrong." Emma took the number with trembling hands, thanking Susan with a nod. Immediately, she called, her voice firm but courteous, requesting Dr. Hall to come examine Lucas as quickly as possible. While waiting for the doctor, Emma continued monitoring Lucas's health. As soon as Dr. Hall arrived, she felt relief at finally finding a professional who could help her with the child's health. Dr. Hall was a middle-aged man with an impeccably clean lab coat and a demeanor that conveyed professional calm. After a brief introduction, he examined Lucas meticulously while Emma watched every movement, every check. Emma showed Dr. Hall the medication Susan had administered that had caused the monitors to spike. The doctor then turned to her, his expression neutral. "I assure you that the prescribed medication aligns with Lucas's health condition. There are no errors in the treatment. This temporary change in the machines is common after administering this type of medication," he stated, closing his briefcase decisively before giving a knowing glance to Lucas's stepmother. Emma felt a mixture of relief and frustration. Relief because there were no apparent errors, but frustration because something inside her screamed that the information didn't correspond with reality. "Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate you coming to verify," she said, maintaining her composure. After Dr. Hall and Susan left the room, the nurse sat beside Lucas's bed, contemplative. The day was beginning to give way to night, and the mansion was sinking into deceptive calm. She remained alert to the signs of the child's vital signs even after the doctor assured her he was fine. Emma took Lucas's hand, speaking more to herself than to him. "If there's something wrong, I will find out," she murmured, a silent promise made to the child who seemed so vulnerable in his condition. As night fell, Emma prepared for a long vigil. It was then that it happened again. Lucas, the child who supposedly should be incapable of such conscious actions, moved his fingers. His gaze met Emma's, and there was a clarity in his eyes that she could not ignore. Emma froze, her heart pounding. "Lucas," she whispered, leaning forward. The child's fingers moved once more. The moment was brief. Almost as quickly as it had come, it vanished. Lucas returned to his previous state, but it had been enough. Emma now knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was more to Lucas's condition than she had been told. Emma began to search the room for something that would prove her fears regarding the child's care. Then, after a few minutes of searching, she found several notebooks with Lucas's name on the cover, written in the scrawl of a newly literate child. She felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her body. Perhaps this could provide an explanation for all those unprescribed medications that seemed to be harming Lucas. However, they were all locked. She picked up the oldest journal and tried to call out to Lucas several times, without success. The boy remained unchanged until, after a few minutes of attempts, his eyes opened again. Emma watched attentively as Lucas opened his eyes once more, a glimmer of consciousness emerging briefly. She leaned closer, encouraging him with a soft voice. "Lucas, if you can understand me, can you show me where the key to your journal is? I'm your new nurse, and I want to help you." Lucas's gaze slowly moved, straining to point towards a small drawer on his nightstand. Emma followed his gaze and carefully opened the drawer, finding a small golden key hidden under a pile of old papers and faded photographs. With the key in hand, she returned to the journal, her heart racing with anticipation over what she might discover. She inserted the key into the lock and turned it, hearing the click that released years of hidden secrets. The first pages of the journal revealed Lucas's inner world with a clarity that broke her heart. Emma read the words written in a shaky handwriting where Lucas expressed his growing fear over the tensions between his mother Clara and his stepmother Susan. Mom and Susan argued again today. I don't know why they can't just get along. Every time they fight, it feels like a part of me is being ripped away. Lucas wrote in an entry dated a few months before the accident that left him in a vegetative state. Emma turned the page, finding more revelations. Lucas wrote about how the frequent arguments left him anxious and how he felt like he was at the center of a battle he didn't want to be part of. "I just want everyone to stop fighting over me. It's as if I can't say anything, like I'm just a pawn in their game." As she continued through the pages, Emma found mentions of various discussions about his custody. Each entry revealed more of Lucas's fear and loneliness, solidifying Emma's determination to protect him. He was just a child, struggling to cope with the separation of his parents. Closing the journal was difficult for Emma. Lucas's words echoed in her mind, an echo of her own fears about what was really happening in that house. She sat beside his bed, the journal pressed against her chest, and looked at Lucas, whose eyes had closed once more. "I will protect you, Lucas. Now that I know what you felt, I won't let them hurt you again," she promised. her voice a determined whisper in the dark room. Armed with new information, Emma knew her next step was to confront Michael and Susan with what she had discovered. She needed answers not only for herself, but for Lucas, who continued to fight in silence. Preparing for the confrontation, she knew that the coming hours could define Lucas's future. However, at dawn the next morning, Clara returned to the house, this time determined to silence her son forever. As she walked through the corridor to grab one of the medical utensils intended for Lucas's care, Emma passed by the office door and heard Clara say, "We have to disconnect the machines. I don't want to see our son like this anymore, Michael. He's suffering. We can't let this continue," Clara continued. Emma stopped in the hallway, trying to listen to the conversation, her heart racing with fear over what was about to happen. "I don't want to talk about this again," Michael murmured, seeming weary of having the same conversation. "I've asked for the medical team to come here immediately to start the procedure. It will be painless and will end his suffering." "Our son can't go on like this," Clara finished. Hearing that, Emma ran toward the room, determined to intercede before the professionals could carry out the procedure. However, she knew that if she told them Lucas was improving, someone might do something even worse to him, especially after reading the journals. Emma dashed back to Lucas's room, her heart racing and her mind spinning with the possibilities of what might happen next. The house that had once seemed calm and silent was now charged with urgency and the palpable fear of an imminent decision. Upon reaching the room, she positioned herself in front of Lucas, ready to protect him with her life if necessary. Seconds passed before Susan and Clara entered the room, amidst a heated argument, Susan's voice raised and firm. "We can't give up now. Clara, there's always a chance for improvement. You can't decide this alone." Clara, on the other hand, appeared resolute and weary, exhaustion laden in her words. "This isn't living, Susan. Look at him. Do you really think this is fair? We are prolonging his suffering." Emma, observing the tension between the two, knew she had to intervene. She was about to reveal Lucas's subtle improvement when he himself decided it was time for his voice to be heard. Unexpectedly, his eyes opened wide, a disturbing clarity reflected in them. "Stop," Lucas said, his voice weak but audible. The two women fell silent immediately, turning toward him in astonishment. "He spoke," Emma said, almost not believing what was happening before her. Lucas looked at the nurse and said, "Call the police." His hoarse voice took both women by surprise. The room was enveloped in a deep silence following Lucas's words, interrupted only by the soft, constant sounds of medical equipment. The astonished expressions on Clara and Susan's faces reflected the incredible surprise of the situation. Lucas, whose voice had not been heard in years, was now expressing a clear and determined will, completely transforming the dynamics of the moment. Still processing the reality of what had just occurred, Emma wasted no time. She grabbed her cell phone with trembling hands and called the police, following Lucas's request. While the phone rang, she looked at Lucas, finding his eyes showing a mix of fear and determination. Emma called the police, worried about what the child might reveal. She was prepared to face anyone for him. She wouldn't leave her patient in the hands of someone who wanted to harm him. Suddenly, Michael entered the room and was immediately updated on the positive change in his son's health. The boy's father knelt, crying in the room, while Lucas continued to alternate his gaze between his mother and his stepmother. The weight of his words hung in the air. Clara, tears in her eyes, slowly approached the bed, her previously resolved posture now moved by the unexpected revelation. "Lucas, my son, I just wanted what was best for you. I thought you were suffering," Clara began, her voice choked with emotion. Lucas, with visible effort, tried to smile at his mother, a gesture conveying understanding despite everything. Susan, who had been watching the scene with a complex array of emotions on her face, finally spoke. "Lucas, I will never give up on you, especially now." Her voice, previously filled with defensiveness, now sounded genuinely relieved by the clarity the situation demanded. "But now I need to tell the truth about whatever is going on," Lucas said, his voice still hoarse due to his condition. "I need to tell everything." As he began to speak, his voice grew weaker, as if each word required immense effort. His breathing started to become irregular, and Emma watched the monitors beside the bed with increasing alarm, ready to provide assistance should the child's condition worsen. Susan approached, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Lucas, please rest a bit. We can talk about this later when you're better." But Lucas shook his head slowly, the clarity of determination in his weakened eyes. "I need to talk now." His voice was almost a whisper, and his eyelids began to grow heavy, struggling to stay open. Before Lucas could continue, the sounds of the machines by his side intensified, a warning that something was wrong. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Emma called for an ambulance to come to the mansion immediately, while she began to tend to the child, administering medication to stabilize his blood pressure. Everyone in the room watched as Emma cared for Lucas until the medical team hurriedly entered the room, as if she had used all her strength to await their arrival. Lucas's eyes closed, his consciousness slipping away before he could reveal his secret. The doctors began working immediately, instructing Clara, Susan, and Michael to step back while they attempted to stabilize Lucas. Emma helped, explaining the child's situation, while holding his hand until she finally had to leave him in the doctor's care. Chaos erupted in the mansion, especially with the arrival of the police. One of the officers approached Emma, who was still trying to process what was happening. "Miss, we received a call from the hospital. It seems there was another attempted poisoning," he said. "Now we'll get access to the security cameras and we'll be able to clarify the case." Emma, still in shock, merely nodded. The suspicions of poisoning confirmed her worst fears about the danger Lucas faced, but she had never imagined it could happen inside the hospital itself. The police quickly accessed the security footage, carefully watching the moments leading up to Lucas's crisis. It didn't take long for them to discover something shocking. The footage showed Michael stealthily entering Lucas's room and administering something into his son's vein. Confronted with the evidence, Michael was immediately handcuffed in the hospital under pressure. He finally broke his silence, saying, "I just wanted to end his suffering," Michael confessed, his voice choked with remorse. "I couldn't watch him like this. I thought I was doing the right thing. He was dead inside. I knew he would get worse again, and I wanted what was best for him. What good would it do for him to wake up and return to that bed? That wasn't living. He was suffering," he completed. Emma, hearing the confession, felt a mix of anger and sadness. She thought of all the times Lucas had tried to communicate in his struggle to express his will to live, despite the circumstances. Michael's betrayal not only put Lucas in mortal danger, but also destroyed the relationship he could have had with his own father. The police arrested Michael, but Emma didn't lose sight of the shock that took hold of Clara and Susan's faces, who had argued so much over how to care for the child that they failed to see the real danger he was in. As the days passed, Lucas's health improved. The boy gradually returned to walking, talking, and acting like a normal child. The investigations conducted by the police indicated that the medications given by Susan had, in fact, improved Lucas's condition. Clara, for her part, was terribly remorseful for having thought about disconnecting the machines when she believed her son wouldn't improve any further, losing faith during the investigation. It was decided that Lucas's custody would remain with Susan, who demonstrated a profound understanding of Lucas's medical needs and an unwavering dedication to his recovery. Clara, although remorseful, agreed that the stability and family environment Susan could provide would be better for Lucas's ongoing well-being. She decided to stay involved in Lucas's life, but in a more peripheral way, ensuring he always knew that she loved him and cared deeply. As Lucas continued to recover, Emma felt a mix of relief and satisfaction for having played a crucial role in revealing the truth and protecting the boy from a potentially tragic fate. She visited Lucas regularly, becoming a constant figure of support and care in his life. The bond between them grew, strengthened by the adversity and mutual trust they had built together. On a particularly bright day, with the sun shining high in the sky, Lucas was running through the park under Emma's and Susan's watchful gaze. His carefree laughter, full of life, was a sound Emma never thought she would hear again. During the dark days in the hospital, watching him play, Emma reflected on the incredible journey from those tense moments in the hospital to this place where hope had blossomed against all odds. "He's making surprising progress," Susan commented beside Emma, watching Lucas with a maternal gaze. "It's a miracle considering everything he's been through." Emma nodded, her heart warmed by the scene before her. "He's more than a miracle, Susan. He's proof that resilience and love truly can change the course of things. Lucas is a fighter." Susan smiled in agreement. "And we both have to thank you for that. If it weren't for your determination to uncover the truth, who knows where we'd be now?" Emma felt a twinge of pride, but she knew the real victory was seeing Lucas so vibrant and full of life. She had made a promise to him in that gloomy hospital room, and she fulfilled it, not just to protect him, but to give him the chance to live the life he deserved. The investigations into Michael and his arrest for his actions brought about some changes in medication regulations and oversight of complex medical cases within the hospital. No child should have to endure what Lucas went through, and Emma actively participated in campaigns raising awareness about pediatric safety, using Lucas's story as a powerful testament to the need for vigilance and ongoing advocacy. In time, Lucas's story served as a sobering reminder, but also as inspiration. As he ran through the park that sunny afternoon, it was clear that despite everything, Lucas was finally where he belonged, in a place of love, care, and infinite possibilities. After his arrest and confession, Michael faced the rigor of the law during the trial. It became evident that despite his declared intentions to alleviate his son's suffering, his actions had crossed the boundaries of ethics and legality. He was convicted for the inappropriate administration of medication and endangering Lucas's life. receiving a sentence that reflected the severity of his acts. Michael's conviction was a moment of reflection for many regarding the responsibility and power parents hold over their children's lives. Emma never stopped visiting Lucas, even when she secured a job on Dr. Hall's team, in recognition of all she had done. Gradually, Emma was promoted to head nurse, where she found not only her professional fulfillment, but also her life's purpose. Her tireless dedication during Lucas's crisis not only saved a young life, but also paved her path to becoming an influential advocate for patient safety in hospitals. Emma was invited to speak at health events across the country, sharing her experiences and the lessons learned from Lucas's case. Her voice became an unstoppable force for reforms in pediatric medical treatment, helping implement new protocols for medication administration across various healthcare institutions. Lucas, now a vibrant teenager, had defied all medical expectations. With the love and care of Susan, he not only regained his health, but thrived in various aspects of life. His resilience and strength were a constant source of inspiration for Emma, who continued to visit him regularly. They shared a special bond forged in the flames of adversity and strengthened by their mutual commitment to overcoming. Surprisingly, the relationship between Susan and Clara had transformed over the years. What began as hostility, fueled by fears and uncertainties, dissolved into an unlikely friendship. Both women had learned to set aside their differences in the name of love for Lucas. Their initially tense encounters, filled with past resentments, gradually became moments of sharing and mutual support. Clara, in particular, found peace in her regret and worked to repair her relationship with Lucas, cherishing every moment with her son in a new light of gratitude and respect for life. Both women realized that deep down, they wanted what was best for Lucas, and for that, they had to join forces. So they made an effort and began to help one another for the sake of the child, ultimately allowing Lucas to find the family peace he so desperately sought. Now, he smiled genuinely, feeling embraced by the two women who, despite their differences, cared for him with so much love. As Emma looked back at all they had achieved together, she felt profoundly grateful. On Susan's porch one sunny afternoon, while watching Lucas play soccer in the yard with some friends, Emma smiled, knowing that against all odds, they had built something beautiful from the ashes of despair. Life, with all its unexpected turns, had taught each of them about the strength of the desire to live and fight for the helpless, but above all, to never lose faith, even when everything seems lost and there appears to be no further chance. They realized that in analyzing life, there is always room for faith, for a miracle, and for something beyond our comprehension. They learned that life, with all its complexities, still reserved space for faith, love, and hope. The shadows of the past had dissipated, giving way to the light of a present they never thought possible. Every day brought the opportunity to celebrate life, to cherish every moment, and to look towards the future with hope. Watching Lucas run and laugh, his energy and joy filled the air with a promise of bright futures, not only for him but for all of them who had been touched by his journey. Emma reflected on the many lessons learned and how each challenge faced had shaped not only her career, but her view of life and humanity. Beside her, Susan shared a look of understanding and satisfaction. They didn't need words to express what they felt. The feeling of a mission accomplished stood alone. Susan, who had transformed from adversary to ally, was now more than a friend. She was a sister at heart for Emma. Together they had navigated the most turbulent waters life could offer and emerged stronger on the other side. Clara, sitting a little farther away, watched her son with a serene look that only comes with acceptance and forgiveness, both of herself and of others. The healing process had been long and arduous for her, filled with ups and downs. But she had finally found peace. The gratitude for having Lucas healthy and for restoring her relationship with him shone in her eyes every time she saw him smile. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Emma, Susan, and Clara allowed themselves a moment of quiet contemplation. Lucas, oblivious to the challenges he had overcome, played soccer with the carefree spirit of someone who knew he was safe and loved. Above all, he knew he was a living miracle. In that perfect moment, they knew that everything they had fought for had been worth it. Life still held many mysteries and challenges, but they would face them together, with the unwavering faith that had guided every step of their journeys thus far. They were living proof that even in the darkest circumstances, light can find a way, a miracle can manifest, and love will always prevail. Your support is important to us, and we would appreciate it if you could rate this story in the comments from 1 to 10. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next amazing narrative about to appear on your screen. We greatly appreciate having you here with us. Now you can click on the links that are appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, filled with valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.